All right. Good afternoon. This is a rainy Sunday and a later edition than what we usually do, not early in the morning. Why? Because we were driving back from Gatlinburg, Tennessee, Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, Sevierville, Tennessee, through Bristol, Virginia, all the way back to where we live. Early this morning, I was ready to get home after being down there for a few days. It was our wedding anniversary, and while we were down there, I did not hit a comic book shop. We did a lot of great eating, hit a few flea markets, and just had a little bit of fun. So along the way at the flea markets, I was able to get some comics. And then I also was really surprised because it was pretty what's the word I'm looking for here? Sparse or something like that. I have noticed that every year, whenever I go back down there to Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, it's a little bit less and a little bit less with the comics you're going to find in the flea markets that I could find in the antique shops and things like that, which really surprised me. Oh, let me see here. All right, Doom Space Marine is here. We had a bunch of people jump on at once, or at least let me know. So, hey, what's up? Thanks, John Jones, for the happy anniversary. I appreciate that. All righty. Let's let the internet catch up here. There we go. Great. Awesome, man. Thank you so much. Right. So basically, I am going to show a few comics and stuff, but to give a chance for people to catch up here, we're going to go through our routine here. It is July 9th, 2023. I am broadcasting as of right now at 2:06 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And now we're going to go back in time looking at comics from the past and stuff, right? So before we took off to Gatlinburg to spend a few days down there for our wedding anniversary, I ended up hitting in a couple antique shops and a few other things. Actually didn't buy a lot of stuff for me, but I did pick this up for $2, and I may jump back up to might go back. They had a few other things, but how could I pass up for $2 Godzilla King of the Monsters from 1979, number 22, and that is Moon Boy and Devil Dinosaur on that cover. Okay, the devil and the dinosaur, if you will, right? And I know this is part two of a two-part story because I read this as a kid. And this was a time that as a kid that not only did Jack Kirby art scare me like it did on OMAC and then things like that, but but I also thought a lot of stuff that he did was weird. And as I got older and my taste improved and became more informed and wasn't like, a little, 6 and 7 year old kid reading this stuff, I realized he, even in the 70s, he was ahead of his time. Because I go back and I read 2010, I read Devil Dinosaur, I read Machine Man, and I'm like, these are fantastic. They are better than 99% of the comics out today, right? So that was how we started out. A little $2 fine like that, which I thought was fantastic, right? Oh my goodness, right? Um, so then I went grocery store shopping. I think it's kind of funny that I went ahead and bought myself this, but over the years I've seen memorabilia in these antique shops and flea markets. I'll find things like this that I wished I'd had when I was a kid with the superhero theme and whatnots and stuff. I had puffy stickers, I had sticker books, I had muscles toys and things like that. So it's made me aware that when I'm in the grocery store and I see birthday cards like this, I just go ahead and get them because it's somebody's birthday I know somewhere someday. Uh, Maybe it's even my birthday. Who knows? It's my unbirthday, you know. So what's really cool about this is when I looked over and I was buying, kitty litter, YouTube fame, man. I was getting kitty litter in cat food. Right, I looked over and I saw this. Right, so you can pull this. They swing out, and there's the card. Okay, it's a pop up. Are you seeing this? Okay, Batman and Robin, and I'm convinced that is Jose Garcia Lopez art. Right. But the other thing is that you push a button here somewhere, and it makes noises. Or did the battery run out? Have I played with it too much? Anyway, let's try this.
Hello, I'm Batman, and I just received a bat signal that someone awesome is having a birthday. You! So while we're out fighting crime, we hope you have a great time celebrating. And now, Robin, to the Batmobile.
And what's
Happy birthday!
There's your happy birthday from Batman. Now, here's what's funny. I just realized that voice. This is the guy that does the Batman voice on Batman Brave and the Bold. He was on the Drew. He was he was in the Beverly Hills Hillbilly movie. He was in the Drew Carey show. He was in Napoleon Dynamite. I can see the guy's face and I can't think of what his name is and stuff, right? But he did this voice for Batman Brave and the Bold. So apparently he scored being Batman on their merchandise and stuff, right? So that's just a cool little find. And I'm going to be keeping it in the package with its instructions on what to do with it. So that's just a little fun find there. Hey, Rob Ripa is here. Everybody go back and check out Rob Ripa's YouTube channel. He's probably got a lot. He should still have a library up of all the music he wrote and stuff, right? So to get down to it, I hit a couple flea markets. Like I said, we had a lot of great food, a lot of great finds on other stuff. But like I said, real sparse on the comic books. Okay. I really wasn't surprised. And no, I did not hit the comic book shop. Basically, because if you have been to Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg, when I go, I can have a good time when I get out and walk. I can have a good time when we're at the room. But the thing about it is that you have like six, in and out when you get off of, I think it's 460 or yeah, it should be 460. Anyway, when you get off of the exit to take you into Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg and stuff like that, you end up having like 3 lanes going in, 3 lanes coming out. And the closer you get, they're like, we got you. And it turns into 2 lanes and then 1 lane. And the traffic is horrible. And you're there, it's like going to Disney World and seeing the line. You go down there, you're in Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg, and you're in traffic, lots of people and stuff. But once we get away from that, you're all right. And you just never know what you're going to find. So at the flea market, I decided to get the stepson a few comics that I'm going to give to him after this. And it was hilarious because I had 1 issue of this left from Comico. He saw it. I let him read it. He hasn't come out of his room. He still has it. And I had a whole run of the Macross saga. That should be your first clue if you know anything about anime of the 80s and stuff and manga and stuff, right? But anyway, a little bit of Robotech, Robotech Masters. Now, all of these were supposed to be $1 a piece, but I got 32 books, I believe. And the guy cut me a great deal because he said we were all collectors. And apparently everybody in the markets were saying that for a Saturday in Gatlinburg in July, it was real slow. So we went to they had a craft convention going on with 200 vendors that my wife and I walked around. We had wine tasting, moonshine tasting. We had a really good time, stuff like that. And in the midst of this, it was slow. That's why we were able to do so much, even though the traffic was horrible, right? So anyway, Robot Masters from Comico. This is probably like 85 up in the mid 80s and up. There were Robotech cartoons on television, and they were syndicated, but we didn't have them around here. But I did see a guy. If you go back and you look at my video I made years ago where I act like we had a comic book community that would mail VHS tapes to each other. That was our videos, and I had a retro one. I talked about going to a guy's house, which really happened in like around 85 or 86, and I was there to play Dungeons and Dragons, and it turns out he had the Robotech role-playing game, I guess, all set up with a table that was a field with lakes and everything like that. And he had a full run of X-Men that I couldn't believe what I was seeing. But anyway, that's where I discovered Robotech and finally got to see it. So I had for 20 years, I think, I don't know, about 20 years, I had the entire run of Comico Robotech Macross Saga, the one that I liked and everybody liked back in the day. I finally sold it around 2015 or 16 for next to nothing. And I went to look at it to try to get this. And of course, it's eBay prices. But now people are like paying big bucks for it. So I got some of the later issues of the Robotech Macross for the stepkid to read. Just kind of fun stuff, fun retro stuff. Great stuff there. Man, Paulo's here. What's up? Sig Badger's here. What's up? We are exhausted from our trip, so we're just having some fun here, guys. All right, great to see everybody. Man, comic collectors here. What's up, man? And I do have like the first appearance of Spider Boy. I'm going to talk about. I read it. It's a second print, but I'll talk about it. I found it also, right? So here's what we're going to go through pretty quick here and stuff, right? A lot of great books from the 80s on up. First thing we want to talk about is I am slowly piecing together a full run of Gru. I have a friend named Scott who has the full run of Gru, and as with most things, and this is the Epic Marvel Epic line, Marvel Comics Epic line. I think this started in around '85. Before that, he was in Destroyer Duck with his first appearance at Pacific Comics. Had a couple issues here and there, and then they hit the big time with Marvel, putting them out on the Epic line. Sergio Aragonis, Mark Evanier, look up their names and stuff, right? And this is issue number 5, and by today's standards, this will just be such a provocative and offensive issue. You just have to read it, but it's about Slavers and Gru right in the middle of them. And it has a twist in it where I was like, yep, that is fair and balanced and stuff. Too bad that even that Mark Evanier probably wouldn't write something like that. And then a lot of depth, considering that it's a funny book, right? Then we jump up to issue 50 and 51 of Gru. I have like a short box I've rearranged and done quite a bit with the comic book room, which is why it looks different today. But yeah, a lot of Gru going on. I have a whole box for Gru, issue 41. I love when I find these for cheap. Normally they're in pretty good condition. And number 50, believe it or not, I did not think a number 50 was one I was going to be able to find so easily. So yeah, there's like I think 120 issues of this, and of course, when you get around to the late 20s, they are extremely hard to find because the print run went down. And now it got out that they are sort of rare. So yeah, just look up the last issue of Gru. You'll be surprised what it sells for, right? Okay, now this cracks me up because I ran away from this. Not out. That's a little dramatic, but I saw this when I saw some things that were coming out of Image and stuff. It was just move on past. Didn't even catch my. I didn't do anything. And now it's like there's certain things that I'm seeing, I'm spotting, and I'm laughing at myself. Like now I'm getting curious 30 years later and whatnot, 23 years later. But for you guys that are seasoned collectors and probably were around during the 90s with the glut of Image stuff that was coming on, there's a little thing that was going to be Generation X, and then they had to change it to Generation 13 because Marvel Comics had a little. Yeah, see, this is why I knew Marvel. I had a thing about Marvel back then because I saw what they did. I saw what they were doing. The suits, not the guys making the comics, if you will, right? But Warriors of Plasm came out from Deviant Comics, so they hurried up and made a character, Marvel did, a character named Plasm, and then they sued them, right? And then all of a sudden, this Generation X, you might be able to find the original advertisements, was going to come out from Image and Wildstorm Studios. And all of a sudden, they were like, Marvel was like, we have a Generation X. And all of a sudden, you got Scott Lobdell and Chris Backlow coming out with Generation X, right? So then they turned around, they named it Gen 13, which I think was a much better name. And then they turned around. I remember the day that I saw a Gen 13 and Gen X crossover, and I'm just like shaking my head, like, you got to be kidding me, man. So yeah, I have a Gen 13 issue 2 of 2. I've got number 1 floating around here. I'm gonna have to find now. Gen 13 meets Monkey Man and O'Brien. Monkey Man and O'Brien is an Art Adams creation, which is why I'm there, and this is by him. So yeah, I'm totally there. I've met people who are like huge Gen 13 fans, but I've always sort of wondered if it was more about J. Scott Campbell and the creator and stuff, right? And then I saw this, and I got this because it was Kevin Maguire. I remember when it came out, I kind of laughed, but I'm like, let's do this, right? Let's do this, right? So Gen 13 in the Fantastic Four one-shot Squarebound. I think it's written and drawn by Kevin Maguire of Justice League fame. And I remember him sort of floating around doing some indie stuff with some stuff coming out. He had one character that had I thought it was like, oh man, he's pulling from Doctor Who because he had one guy with he wore a trench coat, but he had a red and white striped scarf that would turn into shapes and axes and stuff. But anyway, I'm just reminiscing here. But anyway, Gen 13, Fantastic Four. I was just sort of cracking up about this. And this also shows you where the flea market got this, how these comic book shops went out of business and things. I love looking at the back of bags and boards to see if I can catch some of that. And basically, they're apparently in Clinton, Tennessee, if there's anybody out there. Clinton Cards, Comics, and Collectibles, 372 Market Street in Clinton, Tennessee. Zip code 37718, and we even have a phone number here, right? And apparently there's some sort of information in there, probably where they were trying to sell the book, in the bag and board. I find that stuff quite a bit, so I'll be pulling out and reading it later. This was also from Clinton Comics. They had a fancy stamp going on there. More stuff there. And then in the back of these, I can jump back and see who they're from after I open them up, right? WHC Comics, you know. Oh, wait. A6R1. These were bought at auction. Amazing. Okay. Now, I had a few of these, and I always knew about this guy's art style, but nothing was ever around to where I could buy this when I was 12 and 13. And besides, during that time, it was all Crisis on Infinite Earths, Secret Wars 2, the big two were on the stands, and I was right there getting all this stuff, right? And every now and then I would see like a little advertisement, or I would see, where would I see Don Simpson? I think it was Don Simpson art. I'm not quite clear on how I was seeing Don Simpson art, but I remember seeing Yardman somehow. Oh, wait. Pella, we have comments. Let's do some comments, guys. All right. Comic collector. Grew. All right. Yes. Okay. We got Paolo, our foreign correspondent. Great to see you, brother. Epic had the most inconsistent branding. A comic will keep its branding for its entire run, no matter how many years it took. Yeah, absolutely. So in 1990, you could have Epic Comics would have 5 or 6 different corner box designs. Yep. Yep. I used to know a little bit what was going on there because these guys got to keep, there's a lot of hands in the pot there for a little bit. More than there should have been. Thanks goodness for Archie Goodwin, keeping as much straight as he could. All right, John C. is here. Everybody is saying hello. Oh, what is this? Didn't Kayfabe go through the entire Monkey Man O'Brien bibliography a couple of weeks ago? I have no idea. I don't watch them. I've said it before. I have absolutely no problem with the what are they called? The kayfabe, comic book kayfabe. I got no problem with them, but I watched them when they were sort of first starting up and coming out. They had a fantastic. This is how long ago it's been since I've watched one of their videos. I think I've talked to you about it. Howard Chaykin. They had this fantastic. I can't even call it an interview with Howard Chaykin. They were just smart enough to let him go. They would just have the camera go. They kept their mouth shut, and they had Howard Chaykin just talking and talking. And they would jump in over there. That's. I might have watched a video or two after that, but when I watch cartoonist kayfabe, I just see the original comic book community that was on here. A lot of stuff that I saw them doing, we had already done or talked about. A lot of the books and stuff they were talking about. Oh man, but yeah, I'll check it out. I'll see if they've got a Monkey Man and Conan O'Brien one. That'd be awesome. But anyway, I would see these, and I would see Don Simpson popping up. I would see, and I actually met Don Simpson finally. If you watch my Heroes Con video where I showed some of the stuff I had that I bought there, but I met Don Simpson, and he had this parody image book I had him sign while I was there, and I sort of mentioned how I couldn't really. I said I had some of your stuff. I didn't bring it down. It took me a while to come around to buying your stuff because I couldn't really find it. You know, the conversation was going well until I mentioned Cerebus, and all of a sudden he was just sort of like, I was not in Cerebus, but they did have a parody of my character, and I'm like, oh crap! I thought Normal Man. Yeah, I was like, oh my, you know. So we got out of that awkward stage real quick there. But long story short, I was real happy to find from 1985 some kitchen sink press Megaton Man. And also like how it's sort of like going through, looks like the air just by the covers. I haven't read these, but going by the eras of comic book history, if you will, right? This with the atomic cloud mushrooms back there. I feel like this is from the 50s. This is number 3. I'm going to get 1 and 2 also. Right, and then we have little Megaton Man sitting there with that not Sue Storm, if you will. So I feel like we're in the 60s here. And then we move on to the next issue where we have a little bit of a House of Secrets first appearance of Swamp Thing, if you will. What is that, 92, 94? A little homage to that. So, yeah, we have now we're in the 70s. So just going by the covers, I'm just real curious here what we're doing here. And then, of course, before Grant Morrison and before Animal Man, we have an issue here where we go meta with the cover. Megaton Man yelling at the creator, "I'm gonna start killing off characters so I can get sales," and he's trying to stop the writer, if you will. Little coyote gospel there. And then in straight and forward into 1985, I don't know if this is meta or what's going on. Number 7, little Will Eisner tribute where he actually apologizes to Will Eisner. And number, what is this, number 8? Yeah. Don Simpson. Now, the other thing is that Don Simpson has a YouTube channel right now. He doesn't get a lot of views, but you can actually pop on there because over the last week, he has been letting you watch how he draws and inks and does his word balloons. And he's actually showing you his work in, I don't know, 10 to 20 minute segments the last I checked and stuff, right? So it's kind of cool to actually see somebody working in comics. Then the last issue, number 10 of Megaton Man. All right. Now, this issue cracks me up, right? Bloodshot for years in the 90s when you were with Valiant. Valiant was hot and you had to hurry up and get them, better have them on your pull list. And even if they were on your pull list, they had such a low print run sometimes, or the demand was so high, it wasn't guaranteed you would get the book. So what they would do is they would have a series going on and they would have a character pop up unannounced to be their first appearance, and then that character would get their own book. So towards the end of this, the last big one in my head that really kind of blew up there for a little bit was Ninjak for a minute. It had more to do with Joe Quesada being on the character than it really had to do with Ninjak. Then there was a little bit of talk of Ninjak movie popping up. A Bloodshot movie came out, if you remember that. It wasn't that long ago. But anyway, this was hard to find. So I go 20 years without ever finding one. And this is going to end up being my 7th or 8th one that I got for $1. And actually with this lot, less than $1, right? So if Ninjak, the first appearance of Ninjak is what this is. That's what the sticker says if it's going to show. But anyway, I think I have like 5, 6, maybe 7 of these now. It cracks me up. And then I was very, very happy to find these because as I've gotten older, as I look at the big picture out there and stuff, I actually get to finally see how this character has influenced things that I've watched. Solomon, it's Solomon Kane. And there's a fantastic movie that they made in the 2000s so that just nails Solomon Kane. But Solomon Kane is by Robert E. Howard, the same guy that did Conan. And you really have to experience Solomon Kane to know what's going on here because he's one of the few characters that actually, as with his Puritan beliefs and pilgrim-like facade there, he actually does do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. That's actually sort of acknowledged in one of the Solomon Kane books that I read when I was a kid. And he's done some poetry and stuff like that. I found Solomon Kane, of course, in Conan the Barbarian. Savage Sword of Conan is where I found Solomon Kane as a kid, but didn't really get a lot of exposure to him. So I was really happy to find these 2 miniseries, and I have one complete miniseries, and I needed a number 1. It may have been there, but I was getting tired of digging through boxes and stuff, right? But apparently the license went to Dark Horse there for a while. If you remember Kerry Nord and Kurt Busiek and Tim Truman and all kinds of people working on Conan in the 2000s. But I did not know that they put out some Solomon Kane. And then I saw these came out around 2009. And I was in the middle of moving and starting new jobs in Roanoke, Virginia and stuff. Had other things going on. So yeah, I completely missed these, right? So apparently I got some of the variant covers. But here's Red Shadows, 2 of 4. I need a number 1 of this, but that's okay. But as I got older, it's probably around the 2000s where I started paying attention. But Solomon Kane, really, I could see the influence in Vampire Hunter D, at least with his look. And there was this god awful movie called Van Helsing with Hugh Jackman in the midst of his Wolverine Heights and stuff like that, where you could tell he's going for another franchise that I absolutely hated. I actually found it streaming the other day while we were just wasting some time waiting to go on our trip, where I'm like, no, this movie still sucks. And I remember that whoever made that Van Helsing movie, they were talking about him handing over the Flash Gordon franchise to him. And I'm like, I will go and burn Hollywood. But anyway, Solomon Kane, Dark Horse. These are beautiful covers. See if I can get some of the glare off of here. Have not had a chance to read this. I have a wonderful Guy Davis cover, but Guy Davis is not the artist on this. Okay. It's not someone I'm familiar with. I think these are like I think I looked up and got some of the variant covers, right? And this beautifully painted Solomon Kane gorilla book. And I'm not sure. I can't wait to get in here and read this. But I'm thinking I read this actual story, but I'm not sure. Let me get in there and, I think I know where he's at and what's going on. So hopefully they're going by the actual tales of him. And then all these, this is a second miniseries, Death of the Black Riders. I have all 4 issues of this. Robert E. Howard official licensed book. These are Derek Robinson of The Boys covers, but he did not do the interiors. Solomon Kane. Yeah. I'm hoping that glare is just not killing us here. Yeah. I thought that was a Perez cover, but it's not when I was going through the boxes. But anyway, these are going to be a lot of fun. If you like reading Robert E. Howard stuff, if you're like Conan, if you like what Dark Horse did back in the day with a lot of their license, I'm expecting these to be a satisfying read, if you will, right? And this one, going back to one of my favorite books, this is today, as of today, this would be in my top 10 books, things that I think people should read. And when I say read, I mean because there's a beginning, a middle, and end, execution of a story, themes. It's just well written, and it's freaking, it's a Ronin samurai, if you will, right? But anyway, I think the First Comics brought these over and translated them in the late 80s. Frank Miller did covers for them. A viewer out there was kind enough to send me a issue that Frank Miller actually signed. And these were movies in the 70s that I finally gotten to watch because I think they're on the Max. It's at least where I think I have them saved. I finally got to watch some of the 70s movies of this, right? Of Lone Wolf and Cub is what it is. 43 issues out there from First Publishing. I think I'm needing 4 or 5, and I'll have the complete run somewhere behind me on the shelf as I'm reorganizing things. What am I saying? I'm thinking right here behind the Time Machine book and stuff. It's where I keep my square bound, beautiful anime books. But I got issue 27 of Lone Wolf and Cub with these beautiful covers at number 28. And Mike Plug ended up doing covers for these about the last, from the mid 30s on up, I think. And that's a powerful image when you realize that's a woman with basically money thrown on top of her, if you will. And I flipped through this one and I'm like, man, this stuff is just so ahead of its time, right? So anyway, that's what I got. That was the haul. But don't go away yet because I'm just going to put this on blast, But anyway, I've had to replace a few things because as I was unpacking stuff and rearranging things like that, some things were damaged. I'll show this one day when I finally get it framed and everything. But this is the 1992, I believe, promotional poster for John Burns' The Next Men. I carried one around since 1993 that was falling apart, and it finally got mildewed. I had to throw it out, and luckily I found one on eBay for nothing with free shipping. The one. Okay, now I'll just show that because it was on top, one of the things I got right. But I found this. It's a second print, so let's not get excited. And I didn't pay much for it, but I was at one antique shop, went through their boxes, and it was one of those guys that was just, he's in an antique shop, so everything he had was, he had 5 or 6, I can't remember if they were long boxes or short boxes at this point. Might have been a mix. And of course, he just slapped everything $6 to $8, and There was a few things a little bit less and stuff. And he had two of these, and I couldn't figure out at first why these weren't super high priced. And then I saw that it says second printing on them. There was two of them. Oh, come on, there we go. So there was two of these. This is Spider-Man #7 by Dan Slott, Mark Bagley. And I'm like, every now and then I will check out current Marvel to see if things have gotten better. Oh, hello. Excuse me, guys. Let's get this comment in. Nice. Yeah, the Van Helsing movie put me to sleep. I thought it was horrible when I watched it in the theater, and it was horrible when I watched it, close to 20 years later. Still horrible. Yeah, I'm glad everybody liked that. I'm glad everybody so far, yeah. Okay, Paolo, I think Red Shadows was also adapted to a pair of Marvel premiere issues. That could, yes. I'm gonna laugh if I have a Marvel premiere box somewhere stacked in there that I was gonna go through again, and I'm gonna laugh if I haven't read those and just didn't do it. Hey, Dr. Silver Age, what's up, brother? Good to see you, man. 80% of what Marvel puts out now looks like old Star Comics issue of Strawberry Shortcake. It is horrible. It is horrible, right? So I had an open mind and I read this, and I just read this honestly probably an hour before I got on this stream, guys. Right? I was like, let's have it fresh in my mind. I don't want to overthink it. I don't want to do anything. First of all, it's Dan Slott. Now, when I make critiques like this, and I only say this because of the nature of of Twitter and the nature of YouTube and some of the how these guys act, and it's calmed down a whole lot. But Dan Slott's one of the guys that stalks people allegedly. I've got a taste of it a couple years ago and stuff, but he'll be all over on Twitter and things like that if you say anything, right? So it's critiquing the work, not him. It's critiquing the book, the story, the things I see as a reader, nothing else. Okay. But anyway, I've read this about an hour ago, and I'm like, this is just a piece of shit. And I was really surprised that Mark Bagley was the artist on it because it's not his best work. But if you go through and you read this, Spider Boy doesn't show up until the very, very end of the story. I'm surprised they didn't pull the old cameo instead of first appearance that Marvel did, like with Hulk 180 versus 181, Howard the Duck and the Kiss popping up, whatever those issues were, 12 and 13 or whatever, right? So anyway, he's barely in the book at the end of it. And when he pops up, nobody remembers him. And he gets all mad and just throws a fit because he's like, after everything we've been through, Miles and Peter and all you guys, I'm pissed. So he takes his ball and runs home. So he's super immature, right? But this thing is just a mess. And then there's nothing original in it, right? This is like a pre-crisis DC story, if you will. It's close to a crisis. The main villain is some kind of wasp goddess that reminds me of Swarm. It was a male character, more or less, who was made up of bees, and she was as big as the skyline in, and apparently she was sending her wasps out through the multiverse, much like DC, and anybody that was part of the interwoven web of life, a la Swamp Thing, a la Animal Man, a la whatever. I know Straczynski did it with the totems and stuff like that. They're going way, but you got to know your Spider-Man lore to follow me here, but they're pulling from Straczynski a little bit. They're pulling from the multiverse movies a little bit. I mean, this is just a cash in on the movies and stuff, right? And it makes no sense. And there's dozens and dozens and dozens of different versions of Spider-Man across the multiverse. And they're all talking with hundreds of them, dozens of them in the background, and all the characters are able to hear each other and follow each other. And then they have Silk being a complete bitch with what little she's in there for. No, not a leader, not the chosen one. They even comment that she's like a real bossy. But this thing is just like a mess. It's not even really that fun. I'm just sort of like, yeah. So basically, where nobody remembers Spider Boy, and miraculously, anyway, that's how stupid the plot is, right? But basically, something happened in the issue before where somebody sacrificed themselves, and it reset all the Spider-Men in the multiverse to where they were no longer under the control of this weird wasp queen. Okay. Whatever, Swarm version 2, if you will, right? So everybody's back together. Of course, the goalpost has been moved. You can already tell there's no stakes in this. And of course, Peter Parker is the only person who's not a Spider-Man in the multiverse anymore. But he ends up saving the day anyway and becomes Spider-Man again, even though he didn't remember being Spider-Man, right? A lot of, just how casual it is that people don't remember things, and all these people are popping up and stuff, right? Basically, this thing is for 5 years old. This could have been a golden book. So anyway, I'm reading this and I'm like, this is horrible. So everything that they pull in here, I didn't see one thing that was original in this. They made Spider Boy basically triumph from the Justice League. If you go back to Zero Hour, don't remember him? Well, there's a reason, and it's going to happen to Spider Boy too. If you remember Spider Boy, it's probably going to be because you hit FOMO and bought paid a lot for this book, and in a couple years it ain't going to be, it's going to be nothing, right? So basically he just takes his ball and runs home because he threw a little immature fit. So that's the great characterization of everybody in this book. But what was getting me is, like I said, is that it was page after page of like hundreds of tiny little versions of Spider-Man all just floating down. I guess they're fallen from the sky. I don't know. And you had like all the characters that were in the foreground all talking to each other, and they would be off panel and someone would be running by, and I was like, how's everybody hearing each other? But they carried on conversations. There was no thought put into this. This was just get it out, do a multiverse story. We'll throw in a little Spider Boy, and here's stuff I've read in comics over the last 30 years, and I'll just pull from all of that. So the fact that this is a hot book, okay, fine. I'm not attached to this. If the second print takes off, yeah, I'm getting rid of it. So there you go. That should have been its own. That should have been its own review, but yeah, I didn't even want to put the energy into that. It was so bad. Oh, right. What's going on? We got a lot of people popping in at the end here, man. Tats Comics is up. What's up, brother? Gator's here. Hey, what happens when Spider Boy's an adult? Do they fight over who gets to be called Spider Man? If I was writing the story, he wouldn't make it to a man. So, it was really bad. I don't know, man. I'm just thinking people just don't know. I think there's just a generation that didn't get to grow up with well written comics, so they don't know the difference. All right. And Skolatorium's here. Who's this? Yes, Skolatorium's here. What's up? Great to see you, brother. All right. Well, guys, sorry you guys popped in at the end, but that is it. I might shoot a proper video tonight. And thanks for everybody that's popping in. Go back, look at the haul. And for you guys that are popping in, we just got back today from Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg. It was our wedding anniversary, so we spent a couple of days down there, and tomorrow we get back to the grind of work and stuff, right? So I just wanted to show some of the flea market hauls I got. I thought I got some pretty good stuff, man. So stuff I like. Later, be excellent to each other, and glad to see everybody, man. Later.